Welcome back to another episode of the Crimson Crossover podcast presented by the Field of 68. I'm Christian Sykes, joined by my co-host Charles Branch. Unfortunately, Joey was unable to join us, but we got a substitute host in on this episode. We have Coach Ryan Pannone, Alabama assistant coach. I think responsible for the great offensive performances that we had last season. Coach, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well. Thank you very much for having me. I'm not responsible for the great offensive performances, but I appreciate you guys having me on.
Well, Coach, this is year two for you at Alabama. We talked a little bit before we started recording just about the type of, like I said, offensive performances that we had this past season. Where at one point we got ranked, I think it was third all time in KenPom as far as offense is concerned before injuries. Um, the question I want to ask you is coming from the Pelicans and the pro experience that you do have, what kind of either mindset or maybe not specifically sets, but like ideology did you bring to Alabama last year, and obviously you're going to continue to bring in this year with this year's team?
Well, I would say a lot of the ideology I had didn't necessarily come because of coming from the NBA, because the way that Coach Oats plays at Alabama is all NBA based. Offensively, defensively, terminology. He runs an NBA system. And in fact, when I was kind of debating in my head, like, should I leave the NBA? Should I go to college? Which people don't voluntarily usually leave the NBA to go to college. The president of the Pelicans, David Griffin, was the one that was telling me, he's like, look, man, they're the 31st NBA team. You know, everything they do is the NBA, which actually helped me make my decision. Um, some of my offensive philosophy is just born through experience of coaching in Europe and coaching in the G League, and kind of a married conceptual philosophy of things that I love of Europe and things that I love of studying some of the top offensive coaches in the NBA and some of the top offensive teams in the NBA. And so bringing some unique philosophy from that time and how we kind of played to the G League and trying to marry it with the way that Coach Oates wants to play and the way the team was built was very easy, because Coach Oates' philosophy from an offensive standpoint is analytically driven, is to try to generate, obviously, free throws, layups, and threes, the most efficient shots in the game. And the philosophy that I believed in was also the same. How we wanted to generate those shots and create those shots were some of the areas that we tried to adapt to and bring different philosophy and different style to the team this year.
So, and this kind of off the cuff, you talk about layups, free throws, and threes as the most efficient shot in basketball, which is statistically a fact. A lot of our fans wouldn't. At times, we struggle offensively. They come in and say, "Why aren't we taking mid-range shots? Why aren't we doing this? Oh, well, Nate doesn't like. We'll bench people if they take mid-range shots. They don't." Can you just, for our listeners, let tell them, does this offense allow mid-range shots? Do you discourage them, or is it on like a, okay, this person's really good at mid-range shots, like Aaron Estrada last year, like he's okay to take a few because he's efficient enough at them that it's not an inefficient shot for him?
Well, here's the thing, and this is like the biggest misconception when it comes to Nate Oates. He's never benched a player in the last year. He's never yelled at a player for taking a mid-range shot. He will bench you and he will yell at you for not taking an open three, though, because he pulled out Aaron Estrada, Latrell Ryan. If you're open and you don't shoot it, that is an automatic sub. And so with Coach, it's about education, right? Like at the heart of it, he's a teacher. And so all Coach does is all summer long, like, he doesn't yell at you. He doesn't pull you out of the game. He doesn't run you in practice. He's just going to educate you all summer long. It's like, hey, you're shooting 35% on mid-range shots. That's worth 0.70 points per possession. If you were to flip that to a three, right, it would be roughly worth 23%. How many 23% threes do you want to take? And so coach is all about education. And furthermore, it's like Aaron Estrada. Aaron shot the most mid-range non-rim twos on our team, and he did it super inefficiently. Like it literally would be the worst, offense in college basketball. But Oats never took him out of the game, never benched him. And I want to say it was like 38% or 40% on non-rim twos on the year. I could actually pull it up and look, which is zero point 0.8 points per possession, which is terrible offense. And so Oates is going to constantly just try to educate guys and try to get them to buy into the style. And what he does is he's going to show them, look, if you reallocate these mid-range shots into trying to drive to the rim to create more fouls, layups, and threes, here is what your offensive leverage is going to be. Here's what your points per shot are going to be. Here's where our team offense is going to be. And then he's going to educate, this is what the NBA is looking for, right? So with coach, it's all about education. And even I was a little bit shocked because like in the G League, the way that I would practice was mid-range shots were zero. Like I don't have to argue with you. I don't have to yell at you. You can shoot them and make them, and they're still worth zero. And your teammates are going to yell at you because your shooting shots are worth zero. So, when I got here, mid-range shots were still worth two, and I was actually a little bit shocked myself. I thought he was going to yell a little bit more about guys taking mid-range shot. He never yelled at a single player. Now, if we have a practice where we take too many, he's going to pull everyone over to the board. He's going to say, look, right now we're shooting 35% on non-rim twos. Like, this is an efficient offense. Like, we've got to create better offense with this. And so Oates at his heart of heart is a pure educator, and he's really good at that. And then for our fans that have got to understand, mid-range twos, there's nothing wrong with shooting mid-range twos, right? It's when you shoot them. So if you've got 30 seconds on a shot clock and a mid-range two is worth, at the college level below 40%, so 0.80 points per possession, it's lower than that. Why would you take that with 12 seconds on the shot clock when you have another 12 seconds to try to create a foul, layup, or three? And so offensively, right, you want to be committed to the cause. You want to fight the urge to settle until 4 seconds or less are on the shot clock. At that point, it's shots on goal, right? Like 4 seconds left, take a mid-range shot. And then the other thing, right, is like all mid-range shots aren't created equal. Like Oates is never going to yell at a guy. If you come off a pick and roll, you're playing against a drop, you have a wide open mid-range shot and a guy takes it, Oates is never going to yell at you. Now, if you take a look at Latrell Wrightsell, right? Latrell Wrightsell was a heavy mid-range player a year ago at Cal State Fullerton. And I want to say he was the upper 300 or 400th most efficient player in college basketball. And last year, he was fourth in the country in offensive efficiency because he stopped taking mid-range shots. Now, here's one of the best shooters in college basketball, and mid-range shots are inefficient. And what people have got to understand, there's a handful of players in the NBA that can make that shot at an efficient level. Well, Steph Curry and Dame Lillard also shoot 40% from almost half court. Doesn't mean it's a good shot for everyone. Yeah, and so it's communication, education, reallocation, fight the urge to settle. 4 seconds or less, hey, take a mid-range shot.
So you're talking about generating offense and trying to generate the best possible shot. Last year, not saying that the interior offense and the players that we had were bad players, but I feel personally that with Cliff Morey coming in and then Aiden Sherrill obviously coming in and potentially switching Grant from maybe a true five position to more of like a stretch role with the I think our kind of projection is him be a four. Obviously, it's positionless basketball with Coach Oates, but just kind of traditional conversations around that. But what do you see Cliff being able to bring both offensively and defensively to this team that maybe the team was missing last year throughout the season?
Well, I mean, I think if you take a look, especially defensively, rim protection was an issue for us, and which our guys tried really hard. I mean, it's like Grant obviously did a pretty good job protecting the rim. I think in year 2, he's going to protect the rim much better. And what people don't realize about Grant is he was injured from January on. I mean, like he couldn't do anything before practice, after practice. I mean, he's been out most of summer. That's how tough the kid is. He competed from January on. But I think he's going to protect the rim better. And obviously, Pringle tried to protect the rim. He gave us great effort. It's like everything. It's a skill to where Cliff is the best rim protector in the country. And I mean, we're seeing it now. Like he erases stuff in practice. I mean, like we had a possession the other day. I was like, "Ooh, that was great offense." And in my head, I was like, "That's a layup." Cliff comes out of nowhere, cleans it off the glass. I was like, "Oh shit!" Like that's a problem. I mean, he's the best rim protector in the country, and so our defense, I think, is going to jump back up. For the fans, just think defensively back when Bediako was here, right? It's like if and by all accounts, Cliff is a better rim protector than what Charles was during his time here. So he's going to give us that, and then offensively, he's going to give us a lot in terms of he's a lob threat the way that Pringle was. I don't think we created enough lobs for Pringle. Like I don't think we did a good enough job. It's been a big focus of ours in making sure that we try to create more lobs, more dunks with how we're utilizing Cliff and Aiden and Grant. But I mean, Cliff is going to create rim pressure. And if you think of efficient offense, free throws, layups, threes, they're all derived solely from one aspect, and that's rim pressure. Rim pressure is the only thing that creates all three. And if you want efficient offense, you need elite rim pressure. And Cliff is going to give us that. Quick on the rolls, racing hard in transition, offensive rebounding, down in the dunkers, drive, dump balls for lobs. So the rim pressure he's going to create is going to be really good for us.
Charles, you had a few questions?
So you couldn't turn on an Alabama basketball game last year without hearing 3 new assistants, roster turnover at Alabama. Yet you'll come out, have the most efficient offense in Alabama school history. And we were talking about beforehand, average 2 turnovers less per game than any of Coach Oats' seasons at Alabama. How are you able to get everybody on the same page so quickly as far as sharing the ball, knowing the spacing, and not turning the ball over and taking care of every possession?
Are we allowed to curse on here?
It's allowed.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nate Oats is a fucking beast. No, I mean the guy is like, sorry, mom. Yeah, don't play for my kids. I'm trying to curse less. But listen, I mean, I can't help but think about this all the time, right? Like Nate Oats is a beast. I mean, the guy is an elite coach, and obviously, I'm an analytically driven coach. Coach Oates is an analytically driven coach. Our staff is an analytically driven staff. And so as a result, I work in probabilities, not possibilities, right? It is a probability that Nate Oates is going to win anywhere in the country on any team in any league. I mean, the guy is incredible, man. And you see the result, right? Like what he's done at Buffalo. You see the result, what he's done here. Different roster, different style of play, different play defensively, different play offensively. New assistants, new players, 9 new players. Doesn't matter. Guy wins. So it all starts with him. I mean, it's like people, as good of a coach as he's considered, he's underrated, man. The guy is incredible. And it starts with him because he has zero ego, right? And so here this guy is, I mean, it's like I will never accomplish in my coaching career what Nate Oates has accomplished as a head coach. Most people will not. And when you come in and you come into work for him, every idea is about the best idea. He doesn't care who has it. I mean, graduate assistants are in our coaches' meetings, which is rare in college basketball. If you are a manager or a grad assistant and you want to be a college coach or an NBA coach, Alabama's the place for you. I mean, like the best idea wins with Nate Oates. If a grad assistant has the best idea, it wins. He has zero ego to him. You have to be able to explain why. Right? Like, why is this the best? You better have the data, you better have the numbers, better have the video, right? And the way you present it, he's going to consume information. And so our players see, right? Here you have an elite level coach that has no ego to him. And you can see it amongst our staff, and it's very visible within our players that he's got no ego amongst our staff and who's got a great idea. Press Murphy's got a great idea. Nate Oats is going with it. Graduate assistant's got a great idea. He's going with it. Brings me in. If I've got an idea, he likes it. He goes with it. And so I think the unselfishness starts within your leadership. And people can recognize within Nate Oats, and our players can see it, dude's got no ego. And if he's got no ego, how in the heck can you have an ego? Because he's the most accomplished person on the team. I mean, let's be honest, you know? And so it starts there. And then the way that he practices. I mean, from day one, once again, it gets down to the education. Every shot within basketball is a higher percentage shot off the pass than it is off the dribble. That goes to layups, it goes to threes. Every shot we want to take in every aspect. And so he's constantly promoting within his drill work decision making. I mean, everything we do at Alabama is decision making. So you're talking about turning over the ball 2 times less a game. There are some ways that we prepared to attack coverages that I had some ideas for that Coach Oates went with. But as a whole, he drills decision making better than anyone in the country. And he's going to try to teach guys the decision. When I drive, the defender is on my side, score it. Help defense comes in, kick it out. When you catch it, are you open? Shoot it. Defender closes out. Quick swing, create another closeout. So his ability to effectively communicate and educate shot spectrum, shot quality, what we're looking for, holding guys accountable to taking high value shots is really good. And I think the turnovers went down because a lot of how we tried to spend time on attacking coverages. So we spent a lot of time, we're going to work against pick and roll switching defense. And we'll spend a solid 10 days in a row on how do you attack switching defense? What are your decisions? What are your check down reads that you want to make against this defense? And building it up from there to where it's by the time we play any team in the country, by the time practice starts, great thing about college, you know, it's like you got practice whole summer, you know, it's crazy. You've worked every read, every situation, and then we put guys in spacing, and meaning we're teaching floor balance versus coverage. So if you're going to hard show in a pick and roll, what floor balance do we want to be in to attack the hard show? And then what are the reads and decisions based off that spacing? And I think that's why, like, Nate Oats is a master teacher, and he creates buy-in with who he is and who his staff is. You know, it's like the staff is saying we got guys with no ego, which has been really good.
A lot of high expectations going into this year from the fan base. You know, highly rated by a lot of pundits out there. Transfer recruiting class has been very successful, bringing back a lot of key pieces from last year and sticking on the offensive side of things. You know, as we keep talking about, most efficient offense in Alabama history last year. How do you manage expectations for guys and just have them focus on this year's team and what you're doing offensively, than trying to match what happened last year, surpass what happened last year, and just focus on what's right in front of them and trying to be the best Alabama offense for the 2024-2025 season?
I mean, I think it all comes down to a core human philosophy of never a bad time to do the right thing, right? It's like if you want to be a really good offensive team, just do the right thing. And we're constantly trying to teach and educate our players on what is the right thing. And for us, I think offensively, like the core philosophy, we play very random. Okay. So what we tried to do different last year was teaching guys how to play after the play. So if we run a set play and a team guards it well, or your players forget your play, which happens all the time. What's next? And so we tried to teach our players how to play random offense, but random with purpose, random with structure, random with unselfishness. And so when our players do something in practice, it's got to fit this criteria. What's the purpose? Is there a purpose in the decision that you made, or are you doing something to do something? Is it unselfish? Is this in the betterment of the team and of your teammate? Are you trying to get your teammate open with a random flare screen? Check. Unselfish. You're doing what's right for the team. You're doing what's right in basketball. Is there a purpose to it? Well, no, based off where the ball is, you can't make the pass if the guy's wide open off the flare. So there's no purpose to what you're doing. You're just setting a flare screen to set a flare screen. And so we're trying to teach our players how to play random with purpose, random with structure, random with unselfishness basketball. And as a result, it carries over, right? So it's the same thing we're doing with our guys this year. Are we going to be the second ranked offense in the country? I don't know. Maybe we're 10th. Maybe we're first. But if we can continuously get our guys to make the right play, our offense is going to be really good. If you allow the ball to see you and you allow the ball to find the open player, your offense is going to be good. And why? This is what I love about offense. Offense connects people, right? So it's like you talked about last year, we had 9 new players. This year we have 8 new players, right? So it's like, how do you bring that many players together? And it's simple. You know, it's like we try to ask guys this all the time. If you're wide open, who here thinks they should not receive the ball? No one's going to raise their hand, right? Like, yeah, I'm wide open. Of course I should receive the ball. Great. So we can agree, if your teammate's wide open, you should pass him the ball. Hey, like, it's pretty simple. And the most open shot is usually going to be the best shot. How do we create the open shot? That gets down to a philosophy. But we're constantly communicating to our guys, what is the right play? Never a bad time to do the right thing. And if we do that, our offense is going to be good. Our team is going to be good.
So last question about last year. Before we hopped on, you talked about everything y'all were doing right as the season ended. You're about to step into practice for this year's team. I mean, you're constantly going. Have you been able to take any step back and just appreciate what y'all did accomplish last year, finally breaking Alabama through and getting into the Final Four and everything else that came along with it?
You know, one way I try to live my life, I'm a big reverse engineer guy. It's like offensively, the way that we try to play offensively is all reverse engineered, right? It's like, what is the end result we want? How do we want to create it? What do we do to create that shot? For my life, I try to live the same way. If you take a look at Fortune 500 CEOs, you take a look at the most successful coaches typically within college basketball, everyone on their deathbed all says the same thing, right? Like, I wish I would have been a better father. I wish I would have been a better husband. I wish I would have traveled more. I wish I would have really enjoyed the moment. And so through each stage that we had of winning, I really tried to embrace the moment while it was chaotic and while it was hectic, of really just sitting there. Like, every time we'd walk into the arena, I'd stop for 20 seconds with guys who like warming up and just think, man, like, I used to have to like sneak in here. You know, I used to be sleeping on somebody's hotel room floor eating peanut butter sandwiches because I couldn't afford to be at the Final Four. You know, I couldn't afford to go to the NCAA tournament. And I really tried to enjoy each moment. And what was super cool for me, Nate Oats is the best, man. Like, this guy's the best. The best, okay? If anyone ever gets the opportunity to work for Nate Oats, you work for Nate Oats. This guy is the GOAT. Not just an elite level coach, elite level human being. My family was on the whole trip, okay? The whole tournament run. And my son could come to everything. You know what I mean? It's like, Nate Oats let my son could be in the coaches, the film sessions, the team film sessions, on the bus, the shoot arounds, everything. You know, it's like my family could be there. and my family got to be a part. So here, I mean, it's like as a dad, we're in shoot around, playing the Elite Eight, the Sweet Six. My son's there. And so I got to really enjoy the moment as it happened, which I think most of us don't do. It's like when you try to reflect on it, you lose some of the feeling, if that makes sense. And every now and then we're driving, I try to reflect on like, wow, I was driving yesterday with my wife. We were going to Birmingham and sat in the car. I was like, man, isn't it crazy we went to the Final Four last year? Like, that's crazy. And for me specifically, because like when I got here in the summer, I had to ask Oats, because I don't know. I was like, Coach, are we a NCAA tournament team? He looked at me with a smirk and he's like, yes. And I said to him, a couple of weeks ago, we were in practice. I went up to him and I put my hand on his shoulder. I was like, I got good news for you, Coach. I know we're an NCAA tournament team this year. We've got some really good guys and some really good talent.
That wasn't the case before Nate Oates got here. I'll tell you that much. As a lifelong Alabama basketball fan, I can tell you right now that we're in a we try to tell people when we do like Twitter Spaces and stuff, like all you want to do is get into the tournament, and we kind of talked about this beforehand. It's all matchup luck based, right? Like, I mean, it's not all, but there's a large part of that is involved in it where like you just have to get there and then see what happens. And I think that's kind of what Alabama did last year is they just got in and they're like, okay, here we go. Like
people will ask like some of the reasons why is Nate Oates great, right? No ego. Like the guy, I mean, think about how accomplished he is, how smart he is, and his zero ego. I mean, literally, janitor could bring him an idea, and he's going to listen. He's going to like sit there and think about, oh, yeah, you know what, man, that's a great idea. Like he's got no ego to him. Two, he's committed to the cause. Like you would be surprised at how many coaches don't have a philosophy that they 100% believe in. And when you think of coaching, right, it's like you have to be pre-mortem. What are you willing to die by? What will predetermine your death? And I want people need to think about this, right? Like he lost to San Diego State a year ago by one, and they were what, 3 of 27 from three. Here we are playing, we're playing Carolina, and we're down. And I want to say we were 3 of 15 at the half. And most coaches with that pressure on them, on the verge of losing again, the same way, with all the noise of you can't win playing the analytical way, you can't win playing the way Nate Oates does. This guy doubles down. He comes in the locker room, hey, we're 3 of 15, but by expected points, we're up 11. You guys are taking the right shots. Matter of fact, if you turn down an open three, I'm subbing you out to get, like, we are going to, his ability to breathe belief and confidence in his players is amazing. And it's like we said a little bit ago, it is a probability Nate Oates will win because he searches for every marginal gain. I mean, that guy, like, he will do whatever it takes, search under every rock to figure out how to get better, how to win. You'd be surprised at how many coaches do not study basketball. I mean, this guy is like religious in studying the game. You know what I mean? It's like he's constantly going out to different programs, to different NBA teams to try to learn and grow and take our program to a new level. Like we're going to play a little bit different than what we did last year. Like he's always trying to evolve, right? He knows exactly how he wants to play. He knows the shot spectrum he wants. He's constantly trying to evolve on how to create those shots in a better way.
Who watches more film, you or Coach Oates?
Listen, definitely me. He's got to go golf with the boosters. He's got to go raise money. He's got to go. I mean, his schedule is crazy. Like people don't understand. I mean, everyone wants a piece of Nate Oates, and it's like in this era where you have to raise all this money, the amount of like fundraising time with people he's got to spend that isn't basketball related, fortunately for me, is why he hired me. Because he's got to spend that time. But yeah, I mean, I'll watch him under the table. He wants no part of this. But I'm also a psychopath, and he's like a normal human being. So
Maybe
they're doing 360s on the lake. I can't do that. I gotta have it. You guys saw that?
Yeah, I did. I was like,
That-
that's 100% going to be used in a recruiting video, some way, shape, or form.
He's a monster.
being a psychopath, that might be a good lead into one of the questions I was going to ask, where Alabama squadron was not your first time in the state of Alabama coaching. You were at Wallace State Community College in Hanceville, and then I saw in your bio you moved to China to go coach over there.
Oh yeah.
What was that move like, and how similar is Hanceville to, is it Folong that you moved to?
Foshan.
Foshan. I'm sure those two communities are very similar.
So I spent, like coach, my first 8 years, I was coaching high school. And then I went to junior college. And so my wife had to stay. We met. She was teaching at the high school I was coaching at. So she had to stay and teach because I made $600 a month at Wallace State Community College at 26. We're married. She supported me teaching at the high school. And she comes up on spring break, and her favorite show is House Hunters International. Like, I just went down to get a coffee right before we got here. She's watching House Hunters International. And so she's like, you should look into coaching overseas. I really want to move overseas. So I went online and I went on to what's called Eurobasket. And Eurobasket, that they used to have a link, they still kind of do, of a list of every American coach going overseas. So I just started sending out all these all these Facebook messages, social media, any way I could contact these people. And had a coach named Joe Welton, American coach named Joe Welton, respond. And he ended up responding. It was like later, it was like in May. And he's like, hey, I just took a head coaching job in China. Got your message. Let me get here and get back to you. I was like, all right. And it got to August, hadn't heard anything from him, and I wasn't exactly sure what I was going to do. And he called me. He's like, hey, this is Joe. I've got an assistant spot open. Can you get here in a couple days? And I was like, I'd gone to China the summer before because I was working with a guy by the name of David Thorpe, training guys for the NBA draft. And one of the players we had was a guy named Yi Zhenlian, the Chinese player that was drafted 3rd overall by the Bucks. And he brought me over to run like what would be his Chris Paul camp, but in China. And so I told him, I was like, yeah, I can be there in a couple days. I actually left. It was supposed to be my wife's and I anniversary. I had to hop on a plane. I went over. He told me not to bring my wife yet because he's like, well, let me get there and make sure my wife would like you, because last thing he wants is my wife comes and she hates it. And I was like, you don't know my wife. She's a savage. So I went there. Great story. Constant. What a great experience. So I'm messaging with the team manager of like, all right, when I land, how will I know who's there to pick me up? How am I going to get from the airport to where the city is? And because I landed in a city called Guangzhou, and he's like, yeah, I'll make sure like somebody's there. They'll have a sign for you. So I land and I come out, 27 years old, like stupid American. And I'm like doing laps around the airport and like no one's picking me up. Finally, I go outside and there's a guy who's got like this not such nice van. He's like, I was like, Foshan? And he's like, Foshan. I was like, you're taking me to Foshan? He's like, yeah. And I was showing him like the letter from the club. He's like, Foshan. He speaks no English. Loads my bags up. We start getting in the car. He's typing on his phone on a calculator for how much money I'm gonna be. I was like, no, I'm not. The team pays for it. And like he's getting upset. He's like, we've left the airport. He's trying to, get me out of his van on the side of the road in China. I have nowhere to contact him. This is 2012. And this is how stupid I am. I'm getting upset that he doesn't speak English and I'm in China. I was like, speak English. So stupid. And finally, I calmed down and realized it's like, here a guy is, right, like trying to make a living, trying to provide for his family. I didn't have any money. I gave him $20 US, which actually is a lot of money. And He took me back to the airport, and then the team manager got there and he picked me up, and I just remember hugging him, and I was like, "Where the hell were you?" And apparently our flight got in an hour early, and what an unbelievable experience! From different things, right? So you go to Pizza Hut. Well, there's an hour and a half wait. Pizza Hut is like it's like a real restaurant there, and there's an hour and a half wait. We order a large pizza, and like it comes out to where it'd be like a kid's pizza here. And I was like, no, large. They're like, yeah, large. You order water, it comes out piping hot. Because there it's like they don't really drink cold water. And so you've got to learn, how do you order ice water? It's like it's what an unbelievable, humbling experience of figuring out how do you survive, how to be grateful for what we have, because it's what we have here we don't realize. Like, what's poor there is not what's poor here. And I'm not talking homeless, I'm talking poor. Because usually if you're poor here, you have running electricity, right? Like, you're going to have water. You might be poor, but you're going to have four walls around you. There, like, we had a downtown apartment, which was beautiful, but we lived in a hotel, my wife and I, with the Chinese players. Right behind the hotel was this village. All lived in tin shacks, no running water. Like, they had like the well, no electricity. And I mean, it's like in the summer, it's like Alabama, Florida, New Orleans, like unbelievably hot. There's no air conditioning. In the winter, it's much colder than it is here. There's no heat. There's stacks of wood outside the tent. And it's like you're realizing like how fortunate we are. And I tell you what, being there changed my life. It really helped me mature as a human being and as an adult, and learn how to try to more effectively communicate with players that don't speak English.
So Alabama, it's been reported, it's not official, that they're hiring Detroit Pistons assistant coach Brian Adams, I believe. You kind of talked with Nick Kelly, a friend of the program. I think you made a report about how he's an insane defensive mind. If that hire does come to fruition, what do you think he brings to this Alabama team? Maybe not that is missing, but maybe similar to you, bringing in different philosophies, different ideas, which again, Coach Oats, which you mentioned, is always searching for. What are your thoughts on Coach Brian Adams?
He's got some fellow psychopath to him. He's got more hair than I do, but he's got some psychopathic tendencies. I mean, he eats, lives, and breathes defense. I mean, it's like the guy's a worker. I mean, I think if you talk with anyone about him, great personality, great human being, which is like the bar of requirement for NATO. It's like he doesn't his number one thing he's looking for whoever fills that spot is chemistry. I mean, it's like chemistry. It's like, can they fit on our staff, right? Because here you got Preston Murphy, best recruiter in the country. I mean, that guy's, talk about the elite of the elite of what that guy does. Holy crap, man, that guy's incredible. You got Adam Bowman, who runs our analytics and director of strategy. Him and I are on the offensive side together. That guy's doing things NBA teams aren't doing. And you've got Christian Pino as director of recruiting. Like, we've got really good staff chemistry. And so number one with him is like good human being. Brian checks all those boxes. Like, anyone that talks to him, great personality, great dude, all about the team, all about the program. Relentless worker. All he cares about is like defense. It's like he's not like, he just wants to get guys better individually, defensively, wants to get the team better defensively, has edits on edits, constant preparation. And I think we've got some really good defensive pieces. We've got big, strong physical wings, right? With Chris Youngblood, Darion Reed, Houston Mallet, like some of these guys are Trell Reitzel. We've got better rim protection, more size at the rim with Cliff and Aiden. And then obviously Grant, especially if Grant's at the healthy level. I mean, I think what we saw at the end of the season out of Grant against Carolina is like who Grant could be all the time, right? And then Sears can be a bulldog. I mean, it's like, he's got some physicality to him. So we've got some defensive versatility that Brian, if he's hired, would be able to work with. And I think fans are just going to love his commitment to the pursuit of defensive excellence that he wants to bring to the team.
Charles, you want to ask your last question?
Yeah, last question. Wanted to end with the fun one because since you said you are the film guru of the team, I have to get your opinion. Best basketball movie ever made.
It's a great question. On one hand, how do you not love The Pistol? You know, like if you really want to go without the great, you know, cinematic, I'm a romantic at heart, you know, so it's like, how do you not love, you know, I mean, that's a good question. I love movies, so I could be pulled in so many different directions. You know, it's like Space Jam, amazing. I think Pistol's underrated. You know, I don't think it gets. I'm going with Pistol. You know, it just doesn't get the love that it fully deserves.
So since you mentioned Space Jam, my boys have started. They're into Space Jam right now too. They're 4 and 6. They like Space Jam with LeBron James. I tell them the Space Jam is the original with Michael Jordan. Can you settle the debate for us? Which is the better Space Jam movie?
I mean, it's not even a question. Yeah, it's like, were we better offensively with Latrell Wrightsell or without him? Yeah, it's like not a question. Without a doubt, Michael Jordan.
And the Birmingham Barons being part of it too. The whole Alabama connection has to play into that too.
You know, when I got hired with the squadron, I didn't even think of that. You know, it's like they're taking me to the baseball field. I got to throw out the first pitch, and it didn't even ring. And then it's like as I'm walking up there, like I'm seeing massive posters of Michael Jordan. I was like, holy, I was like, wow. I didn't even ring true until I was like walking up, you know, the steps there. Which is very incredible. I mean, imagine being here when Michael Jordan was here, and like, what an amazing experience.
Well, Coach, we appreciate your time. I think you're going to the gym now, so appreciate you joining us. Looking forward to this upcoming season and just speaking with you on just different philosophies past season, and then as well as maybe projecting a little bit to next season. So appreciate you.
Yes, sir. Thank you, guys.
Roll
Thanks,
Tide.
Coach. Roll Tide.
Bye.
Man, what a great interview from Coach Pannone. Super thankful for him to join us and take some time. Like he mentioned, he's going to the gym, playing some hoops with his kids on some of the free time. So really appreciate him taking some of his free time that he does have away from practice and obviously the film study like he does to come and talk with us so that we can get this out to everyone listening. But man, Charles, what were your thoughts on the interview? And just it got me hype. I'm ready for the season to go.
Oh yeah, I mean the passion that he has for the game. I mean, there's even parts, of course, before we were just hearing him kind of explain different things and stuff like that. It's nice to know you got somebody with that type of knowledge, and they don't have to go looking that up on a computer or anything like that. So, no, just like you said, continues to build the enthusiasm for next year's team. And just I think we're all, even though we're here in July and we got football coming up, we're all very excited for that first game in November.
And just thinking about that exact point you just made. Alabama hired a brand new head coach in football that replaces the GOAT and Nick Saban. And I mean, I've heard Aaron Suttles talk about it. I've said things about it on Spaces. I'm having more people talk to me about basketball this year than football. And football has so much like new excitement, change is coming. And people have come to me and said, I can't wait until November gets here. And every time we do these coaches interviews, like the one we did with Coach Murphy, obviously Coach Pannone, we're on the list for hopefully getting Adam Ballman on here soon. Maybe Brian Adams, if that does end up being the hire, and potentially Coach Oats. We're working with that. But every single time that we do these coaches interviews and talk with these guys, like it just gets me more and more excited for this upcoming season, just because one, I feel like the guys are accessible. Like the coaches are willing to come on and talk with us, willing to, talk and be enthusiastic about the program. But on top of that, like they're hyping up to this team next year to where like I'm one that tries to level set expectations every single offseason, and it's hard for me not to be, have high hopes and high expectations.
Yeah, I also kind of put myself in that same boat as you, as the manage expectations, because we've seen this go the way that we don't want it to go in the past. And then, even with as good as this team is going to be, of course, Coach Oats and staff go out and put a tremendously difficult schedule together, where going to Purdue, playing Illinois and Birmingham. We obviously knew we had the game against Creighton coming into Tuscaloosa. We get slotted to play with North Carolina and Chapel Hill for the ACC SEC tournament. McNeese State, Will Wade, we're all familiar with. McNeese has had a very good offseason with transfers. And now we've got the new SEC with Texas and Oklahoma coming in as well too. So it's a challenging schedule. I can't remember how many teams it was that's in ESPN's top 25 right now that we play. And of course, there will be some movement there as the season goes on. Teams have to gel and stuff like that. But I think that's going to be important, for fans and for this team, is that we have all these expectations. If you take a step back or two early in the season, like we did last year, you still have everything in front of you to play for. And as we keep talking about, just getting the NCAA tournament. And with this team, I think last year's team, we talked about how there's going to be a low floor, high ceiling, that there was a lot of room of where last year's team could fall. And they actually did a great job, where I thought the floor was, they didn't have those games last year where they just fell apart against bad competition. It was just at times trying to get over the hump against some of the top teams in the country. This year, you feel like it's a high floor and a high ceiling. So again, if the guys can come in, do the work, get on the same page, like we talked about with last year's team, good chemistry, things like that, and obviously the defense improving, or hopefully improving, then yeah, sky's the limit for next year's team. The talk about being a number one seed, a top four team coming into next season, possibly even the number one team in the country, is all valid and realistic and well-deserved on paper. Now just go do it and go earn it on the floor.
Well, I'll say this for fans that are sitting here saying, oh, we're going to get into the Final Four. That's the expectation. I wouldn't have that expectation. That's a dangerous game that you're playing. Having setting your expectation immediately at, Final Four. If it's not a Final Four, then it's a terrible season. So, while I'm being the guy that's saying it's hard for me not to have high expectations, I'll also say this: don't overestimate and don't set a bar where it's hard to attain goals. There's obviously stretch goals, but I don't want people to come in and say, oh, we made it to the Elite Eight, it's a bad season. Because if Alabama makes it to the Elite Eight, that's the third time in history Alabama's made it to the Elite Eight, right? So that's all I'll say. Outside of next year, we have Summer League, where you have Noah Clowney, Brandon Miller, Keon Ellis. I think Jaden Shackelford got announced on the Oklahoma City Summer League roster. Charles Bediako, Alex Reese on Summer League roster. J.D. Davidson on a Summer League roster. I think the only newish guy to the league that Alabama would have that isn't on a Summer League roster would probably be Josh Primo, but there's other things, other outstanding circumstances that I think kind of prevent that. Even still, I think he's a fourth or fifth. I think he's a fourth year guy, so it would be kind of weird to see him on a Summer League roster. But Alabama continues to put talent in the NBA, and you're seeing that with, I think it's like 8 guys in playing in the Summer League, which is just incredible to think about. 5 years ago, that wasn't the case.
No, not at all. I mean, Summer League was just like filler TV for Alabama fans. There wasn't anything to watch. And like you said, you just rattled off 8 guys that are now on teams. And who knows, with some of the guys that we do have overseas, like, I know Dante Hall's done very well overseas. He's had stints where he's been in the G League and the NBA at times. And we even talk, Herb Jones, of course, obviously he's not going to be in the summer league, but there's obviously other guys that, are in the NBA as part of the Alabama, system through Coach Oates and all that. So, as those games start rolling out, I know the Crimson Crossover account will be, and probably Bama Pro updates too, with John Graham. We'll be sending out time, schedule, if there's an opportunity to watch it on TV. So anybody who's looking for that type of information, those will be the places to, those will be a couple places to go get it from our account so that y'all can see what's going on during the summer league.
Yeah. And then also, speaking of Herb Jones, he changed his number because DeJounte Murray came in and wanted number 5, and Herb was like, "Sure, it's just a number." So, he changed to number 2, which I don't think he was wearing. He never wore 2 at Alabama, right?
He didn't wear it at Alabama. That was his high school number when he was playing high school ball in Alabama. So that's what got him back to wearing number 2.
But yeah, and then you have Colin Sexton, who there's talks about him doing a sign and trade to a playoff team. And there was something else that was Brandon Miller's on the USA select team playing, he's not playing in the Olympics, but he's essentially like the scout team for the Olympic team, which is just, again, crazy to think about that. Like, he's got an opportunity to go to Paris, go and participate in training camps against the best players in the world. Just another level for him to, kind of grow his game more. So a lot of Alabama basketball this summer.
For Brand, and I'll be honest, I'm not a guy who watches a ton of the NBA because I'm focused on Alabama during the season. But Brandon was really playing well towards the end of the year. He had a great rookie season. Very interested to see his growth into year 2, especially with this opportunity, as you said, to be on the select team, to be in training camp with a lot of really, really good NBA professionals, and how that's going to help propel him, for year 2, year 3, and beyond during his NBA career.
And then Darian Reed got 1 U.S. gold in I think it was like Copa America under 18 or under 17 select. I think it was under 18 select team. A lot of international flavor with this Alabama roster, Alabama team. So,
Coach Pannone said something that resonated with me, because I always thought about, with the Final Four run, I'd come back and reflect on it. And of course, he's like in the moment, or like he's there, so it's a little bit easier for him to be in the moment. But with what we have going on in Alabama basketball, like as we go into next year, like that's something I want to be, is more in the moment, not just enjoying the team and then wanting to reflect on it at the end of the year. Just be in the moment of what has been built in front of us and what we have the opportunity to watch. And hopefully it's, again, another successful year like last year's was, and like how the past couple teams have been as well. But I thought that was really that was really interesting from Coach Pannone, and a really good tidbit I thought that he shared outside of just the basketball court and sets and film and stuff like that to share with everybody.
And I'll need to look it up, but I don't know the last time that, if Alabama does make the tournament, I don't know the last time that Alabama's made a NCAA tournament 5 years in a row, which is,
I can't remember. It's now escaping me if Godfrey's run was 4 years or 5 years, and Coach Sanderson's run could have been around. We had a couple runs that are around 4 or 5 years, but yeah, it's, again, the program keeps reaching new heights. Whether it's SEC championships, the prolific offense that we talked about, making it to the Final Four, making it to the Elite 8, or just putting these back-to-back runs together of NCAA tournament appearances.
Okay, so Gottfried had a 5-year run, 2002 to 2006, but Wimp had a run of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years, 10 consecutive NCAA tournament run.
So Coach Oates, you got some work to do.
Yeah, you're not the best yet. Apparently, you got 5 more years or 6 more years to go. So,
for those that did not listen to Coach Godfrey's interview with Coach Oates, I would recommend you go and listen to that. That was also a good podcast. Front Row Sports, I think, is Coach Godfrey's podcast, but that was that was very interesting, having both of them behind the mic together and talking about Coach Godfrey's days, but also what Coach Oates is obviously building in Alabama now.
Yeah, and now just a couple of plugs for us. Obviously, shop J&J Apparel. I have the polo on, and for whatever reason, Charles has a pullover on in 90-something degree weather.
It's not 90 degrees in the office though.
But I'll say this: Tide Hoops history. Michael Southern has been doing a podcast series with different former coaches. We've gotten Wimp on, we've had Mark Gottfried on. I think we had Cheatham on, and we had who else was
Richard Hendricks was on.
Richard Hendricks. Brian Passink was also on it. And I think he's trying to get Trevor Relaford on right now. So, go watch those if you want to, a deep dive into Alabama history. And, maybe some recapping the past as we're a few months out from the season next year, which in most pundits had deemed as the most talented team in Alabama history. So go check those out. Again, Michael Southern, Tide Hoops history. It's all on our YouTube page. And then outside of that, we have a golf podcast, which I forgot to upload this week. So I guess that's a lost episode. That we're doing. We have baseball podcast that we recapped last season with. And we have a few things coming out like 19 Days of Misery with Paul Graham. I've got to get with him, but I think those are starting in a couple of weeks. And we might be doing something with the new college football game. I haven't really thought of ideas, but there might be, maybe some type of fan interaction where, we put out polls and we make decisions on a dynasty together or something like that. Just some fun stuff in the off season to keep the content rolling. So be on the lookout for all of that as well. Charles, did I miss anything?
No, that was it.
Well, we appreciate Coach Pannone for joining us, and obviously appreciate Field 68 for giving us the opportunities to be able to have the coaches on in the off season and talk with these guys. So, yeah, I think that's all we've got. And with that, I think we're good to sign off and roll Tide.
Roll Tide.